You can't even imagine how close we were to the Age of Oblivion. That's right, I'm talking about the start of World War III.
In 1983, in a secret bunker near Moscow, an alarm went off. A satellite detected a launch of 5 missiles from the US. Air Defense Forces Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was supposed to report to commander for a retaliatory strike. But something didn't add up. Why only 5 missiles instead of hundreds? Petrov made the decision not to sound the alarm, breaking all protocols. And later it was revealed that the satellite had detected sunlight reflected off the clouds. The two superpowers nearly destroy each other.
While your family peacefully watch TV, drinking tea, not knowing that the world is on a brink of destruction.
And you think it was a one-time accident? Nah, there were 18 more false alarms. Today you will learn which country has the most nuclear weapons in the world, what would happen to New York if we were hit by a Russian bomb, how atomic and nuclear bomb works, how many atomic bombs have been lost, and how to create a lake with a nuclear explosion.
How many atomic explosions do you think have taken place on Earth? I mean, obviously just 2, right? Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
But what if I told you it was more like 2,500? All the others were just test explosions. This is how the Japanese city Hiroshima looked after explosion on August 6, 1945.
Oh no, this is just a typical Russian city right now. This is Hiroshima.
The 15-kiloton bomb incinerated everything within 2 kilometers radius, and between 70,000 and 80,000 people died from the blast. If we apply modern computer modeling, the same explosion in Los Angeles would kill the same 80,000 people, or it would destroy Lower Manhattan in New York within 263,000 casualties.
But history remembers even more terrifying tests.
Such as the famous explosion of Soviet Tsar Bomba on October 30, 1961. Over Novaya Zemlya, an island on the Arctic Ocean, Soviet pilots dropped an 8-meter-long, 26.5-ton bomb by parachute. This bomb was the size of a limousine, but loaded as a heavy truck. At an altitude of 4,000 meters, halfway where modern passenger planes fly.
This bomb detonated.
What happened next? The flash from the explosion was seen 1,000 kilometers away in Norway, Greenland and Alaska. Within a 55 kilometers radius, nothing remained alive. In Dixon Island, 70-80 kilometers from the epicenter, windows shattered, and the shock wave circled the globe 3 times. But the most impressive sight was the largest nuclear mushroom cloud in history. It rose beyond the stratosphere to a height of 67 kilometers, or 41.6 miles. For comparison, that's 7.5 times higher than the Mount Everest, at 8,048 meters. This bomb was 3,000 times more powerful than the one dropped in Hiroshima. In Los Angeles, this bomb would incinerate the entire county, and over 10 million people would die. In New York, a similar thermonuclear charge would not only destroy the city, but also affect the neighbor states, as in New Jersey and Connecticut.
This is of course theoretical, but it vividly shows what would happen to our cities in a nuclear war.
On the website, you can simulate other major cities and see what different warhead would do to them. The link is on the description.
Now let's break down how this bomb works.
An atomic bomb uses the process of nuclear fission. Imagine that an atom is a small ball containing a lot of energy, and when the atom splits, break into parts, this energy released. So here's what happens. The atom of uranium or plutonium explodes when it hit by a neutron, a particle that triggers the reaction. When the atomic bomb breaks, it releases more neutrons, which hit other atoms. This starts a chain reaction where more and more atoms break, releasing an enormous amount of energy in a fraction of a second. And the temperature of the epicenter of atomic bomb explosion can reach 10 to 20 million degrees, comparable to temperature of the sun core.
And the hydrogen bomb is so powerful
that it uses an atomic explosion as a spark to create a bigger explosion. So yeah, first bomb creates an atomic explosion, like in a regular atomic bomb, and this explosion generates extremely high temperatures and pressure. Then the second part of the bomb uses fusion. This is the process where small atoms, usually hydrogen, combine to form a larger atom, and this process released even more energy than splitting atoms.
And the temperature of the epicenter reaches hundreds of millions of degrees,
which is 15 times more than temperature of the sun's core.
So who controls this terrible weapon?
These are the nuclear 9, the countries that officially or actually have nuclear weapons today. And having these weapons, it what has prevented another world war. Look at this map. The green countries have no land disputes, while the red countries have issues with neighbors over land.
Through the history, such disputes was one of the main reasons for starting wars,
including the 2 world wars. The world now is staying in a delicate balance called a nuclear defense. It's like a standoff. Countries point nuclear weapons at each other, but no one wants to be first to attack, because everyone knows that if one launches, they'll be destroyed too.
So, how many bombs does it really take to participate in this game, anyways?
In theory, each country would need around 100 nuclear bombs.
After all, 100 explosions can send even strongest country back in the Stone Age.
So, 9 countries with 100 bombs each, 900 warheads to defense.
But how many are there really? 13,000.
Yep, 30,000 nuclear warhead worldwide. Huge number that could destroy everything on Earth. And this is just a remnant of what was during the Cold War, when only USSR had around 40,000 warheads. Today, Russia and US each have around 6,000 nuclear warheads. These are still crazy numbers, but not all of them are ready for immediate launch. Some are waiting to be disposed of, some are in reserve, and only about 3,000 are in a combat readiness.
So yeah, we live in a world where thousands of bombs can be launched any moment.
But the fear of mutual destruction keeps humanity from making that fatal mistake. And here's another statistic to consider. Since the invention of nuclear bomb, deaths during wars have decreased by 95%. Even though certain countries might try to dispute these statistics, the principle of nuclear defense still works.
However, if you think nuclear arm race is only about number of bombs, you are mistaken.
It's not about how many warheads you have, but how you use them.
Just like in sex, it's not about the size or potential, but how you handle it.
The first atomic bombs were dropped straight from the planes during World War II. It was simple, open the hatch and gravity did the rest. But this method was, to say the least, not good. The Americans dropped nuclear bomb in the wrong place 32 times. They sank in a sea, fell in residential areas, and some were never found.
6 bombs are still lost somewhere.
The main drawback of bombs was not just that. They flew too slowly to the target and were vulnerable to attacks. So here's the question: how to deliver a nuclear weapon without allowing the enemy to shoot them down on the way? This led to the development of the Nuclear Triad.
Distributing weapons across 3 elements. Element 1. Land.
On land, nuclear missiles are launched from silos or mobile platforms on wheels. These intercontinental ballistic missiles are so fast that they can travel halfway around the world in 30 minutes. And their task is to destroy enemy's missiles before they launch, while they are still sleeping in their silos.
Element 2. Water.
Here submarines come into play. They hide in the ocean's deeps, undetectable by radar, and can quietly reach enemy's shores. If necessary, they can even launch nuclear missiles from beneath the Arctic ice. This secret weapon is kept for the final stage, after all ground targets are destroyed and the bombing of cities starts.
Element 3. Air.
And of course there are planes. Bombers carry nuclear bombs and cruise missiles. Their main advantage is flexibility. If the alarm turns out to be false, the planes can turn around and brought back to base.
You cannot do that with ballistic missiles. It isn't a movie.
Once the real missiles are launched, there is no turning back. Even if everyone realizes its mistake, it's impossible to stop the missile. And this is done on purpose, to prevent anyone from sabotaging the attack or hacking the system. So yeah, nuclear standoff isn't just about who has more. It's a complex strategy where it matters how, where, and when to deliver your deadly weapons.
But you might be wondering, what about missiles defense system? Can they shoot down nuclear bombs?
Unfortunately, no. To shoot down a nuclear missiles during its launch phase, your interceptors would have to be on enemy territory, which, to say at least, it's hard to achieve. Shooting it down on a descent is also almost impossible. It's like hitting a bullet with another bullet, traveling 20-30,000 kilometers per hour. The most realistic chance to interrupt the missiles is in a space, before it starts falling back to Earth.
But even here, there is a catch.
The warhead doesn't come alone, it has a surprise. It deploys several fake warheads, each flying in different direction. And not just that, along with the warheads, a cloud of destructing objects, metal debris, spheres, confuses the raiders. The raider sees a blurry spot, unable to identify a real threat. And the trickiest part is that there are exact copies of the warheads, but they hollow. The interceptor might target those decoys, hitting a dummy, while the real warheads keeps moving towards its target. And that's not all.
The warheads are covered with special thermal camouflage,
making them invisible to defense systems. So essentially, we've created something almost impossible to destroy, if only we devoted as much effort to creating something beneficial for humanity.
For example, famous Manhattan Project involved around 130,000 people,
setting up thousands of new enterprises. They built an entire closed city in a desert, where the best scientists and engineers lived with their families. But the most telling figure is 1,000 Nobel laureates contributed to creation of the American bomb, and that's how America invented the atomic bomb first, in 1945. By the way, USSR didn't create the bomb until 4 years later.
So why are there only 9 nuclear powers in the world?
The answer is simple. It's extremely difficult. The process of creating a nuclear weapon is like solving a puzzle with countless complex elements. The first step is, of course, raw material. At the core of every nuclear bomb or reactor is radioactive uranium, but just finding it isn't enough. To turn uranium into reactor fuel or plutonium for a bomb, you need to go through several complex stages. So raw material needs to be converted into a fuel.
And for that you need the second element, technological capabilities.
These aren't just factories, but sophisticated system capable of working with uranium. To build such capabilities, you need the third and the fourth point, a high level of engineering and an enormous amount of money, because building and maintaining such infrastructure isn't cheap.
And finally, the fifth factor.
Countries that already have nuclear weapons don't want any competitors. They actively work to prevent others from developing a bomb. An example? Sanctions against Iran for its nuclear program, the dismantling of Iraq's nuclear ambitions under Saddam Hussein, and the overthrow of Libya when it showed interest in nuclear technology. But North Korea, despite all the sanctions and pressure, managed to get its bomb. For Kim Jong-un, it's a matter of survival. To avoid a fate of Hussein or Gaddafi, he was willing to do anything. After all, without nuclear protection, it's easy to become a target for invasion and overthrow by major powers.
But there were some interesting uses of nuclear bombs.
One of the most fascinating was the Sedan project. In 1962, an 104-kiloton underground nuclear explosion was carried out in Nevada. It left a massive crater 390 meters wide and 100 meters deep. People believed that this method could be used to create artificial lakes, canals, and mining quarries. The crater eventually became a tourist attraction. There were other projects as well, but they were shut down in 1977. They weren't profitable, caused radiation contamination, and faced public opposition.
But in USSR, nuclear bomb helped to solve a serious problem.
In early hours of December 1st, 1963, a gas well at Ultra Bulak field exploded. From the depth of 2,500 meters, a fire fountain shot 120 meters into the air. Over 12 million cubic meters of gas were burning every day. It's more than large city consumes in 3 years. No one could extinguish this internal flame. It was bombarded with artillery, doused with water, and injected with chemicals, but nothing worked. It became clear that a radically new method was needed. So Soviet specialists decided to use a nuclear explosion to extinguish the gas well. Even though a large city of Bukhara was just 90 kilometers away, scientists calculated that if they placed the bomb at the right depth and angle, no one would be harmed. And the explosion worked. In just 23 seconds, the fire was extinguished. This experiment was successful, and not the only one. Overall, nuclear weapons created as instrument of absolute destruction changed not only the course of wars,
but also the logic of deterrence in the world.
They stopped major conflicts between superpowers, but the price of peace is the fear of catastrophe. We've seen examples where nuclear energy was used for peaceful purposes, but the risks have always been too high. The question remains,
can humanity find a way to use atomic energy without threatening its own existence?
Because as Einstein said, I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
So if you enjoyed the content, you know what to do. See you soon.